Before we begin, we'd like to ask the Honorable Archibald Christian to lead us in prayer. So if you don't mind, could you please stand?
Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day that you have made. We thank you for all that have gathered here this morning for the opening of the Youth Policy Committee. We ask, Lord, that you guide the Minister of Education and Culture and Youth Affairs and Sports, all the other officers associated with the Youth Policy Committee. Lord, we trust and pray that from this day forward, that the policies will guide our youths in a positive direction. And we ask that you keep our youth safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Honorable Ivan Baldwin, Minister of Education and Culture, Honorable Keynes and Honorable Christian, Miss Evelyn Freeman, Miss Gisela Foy, other members sitting here today, pleasant welcome to each and every one. We're here at having a press conference for the unveiling of the Youth Policy Committee. Now, as we know that we've been talking about youths and the development of youths for many, many years, but the one thing that has always been lacking is the youth policy, which is a very important document, because with the youth policy, it would ensure that the things that we are doing are really going to be opportunities to ensure that the youth population of the Virgin Islands are available to create and enhance their living. And so, with our minister, the Minister of Education and Culture, who is very passionate about the youth and making sure that whatever is needed for them to be able to be productive in the community, in the society, has decided to take that final step in making sure that we put the youth policy in place. So we're here this morning to introduce you to the committee and to let you know exactly what would be taking place. At this time, I'm going to call on the Honorable Minister to give remarks and to let you know much more as to what is in store, where this policy is going. Honorable.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I acknowledge the presence of Territorial at-Large Representative Honorable Archibald Christian and the representative for the 6th Electoral District, Honorable Alva Keynes, members of the head table, Mr. Chairman, the Acting Director of Youth Affairs and Sports, the Assistant Director of Youth Affairs and Sport with responsibility for youth affairs, and the Chairperson of our National Youth Policy Committee, Ms. Gisela Foy, Ms. BVI, and the members of the press. We thank you all very much for being here. Importantly, I would also like to acknowledge the young people that are gathered here today and those that will lead this revamped cause in putting together national youth policy for the Virgin Islands. Since the early 1900s, or 1990s rather, governments throughout the Caribbean began the development of their national youth policies to coincide with their public agendas. It has been important for all countries to understand that young people must be considered in any planning and development for society. Since then, most, if not all, Caribbean islands, even our fellow overseas territories, have all developed working youth policies that provide a framework for governments to reference when planning. The Virgin Islands, however, today must rise to the challenge of also developing a national youth policy with the input of young persons on all our islands, which can be accepted by Cabinet and brought to a House of Assembly. Some 16 years ago, the Virgin Islands first attempted to create a national youth policy, but for one reason or another, it got lost along the way. I'm confident that with this crop of young persons gathered here today, and with the leadership of Ms. Gisela Foy driving this effort, we'll finally have a policy that is inclusive of the ideas of youth throughout the territory. Persons under the age of 31 arguably make up the largest population grouping in the Virgin Islands. Our youth policy would set forth a plan for the development and inclusion of this group in the strategic planning of our country. The policy will guide programs and plans to foster youth development, exposure, and education, so that our young people will be ready to assume their responsibilities as the heirs of this territory that we call the Virgin Islands. I want to impress on the National Youth Policy Committee that your task is not at all small, but I know that you guys are built for it and anticipate that you will help bring along your peers from throughout the Virgin Islands so that the final policy aptly reflects the sentiment and vision of young people in this territory. Out of this exercise, it is also our intention to reintroduce the National Youth Council. I believe that the National Youth Council will help to ensure that we get steady representation from youth throughout the islands and ensure that our youth policy is a living document. A National Youth Council is integral to the advancement of the National Youth Policy and thus the advancement of young people in the Virgin Islands. With the Council and the policy, I anticipate that young people will feel a greater sense of representation, worth, and attachment to working towards the development of the Virgin Islands. Just last week, I had the pleasure of spending the day with 7 young persons that I invited as my guests to the annual Friendship Day activities, this time held in St. John's, United States Virgin Islands. Those young persons came from varying backgrounds and represented youth attending college, working in the public and private sector, and living on our sister islands. At the end of the day, many of them shared their thanks for the opportunity to participate in such an activity and to see the importance and value of our ties to the USVI beyond the usual shopping trip or fast food run. It is my intention that opportunities such as a Friendship Day event becomes common to give as many young persons in the Virgin Islands a chance to be exposed and to get a glimpse of the work that is done to sustain and build our country. In the Ministry of Education and Culture, on all our boards, I have made the effort to have young adults seated at the table. With the development of a national youth policy, it will provide a systematic approach to the inclusion of our youth in all our planning. Also, the national youth policy, it is my anticipation that when we as ministers and as a government take a decision, we would have a solid document to reference which gives us an understanding of what our young people want, but also serve as a constant reminder of what we should truly be working for. As Minister responsible for education, the policy should remind me of the key areas of improvement needed to ensure that in the next 4 years, our college and high schools are graduating young people who are ready to maintain our largest industries of tourism and financial services, have a keen understanding and appreciation for who we are as Virgin Islanders and our heritage, but also nurtures innovative thinkers who will solve our unforeseen challenges that will come. A youth policy will guide our Honorable Premier and Minister of Finance in the areas of trade and commerce that we should invest in order to provide new opportunities for business for the next generation of entrepreneurs. A youth policy should guide the Minister of Health in the areas of service and opportunities that will be needed in our health and social development of our communities. A youth policy should guide the Minister of Natural Resources and Labor in the development and maintenance of plans and policies to protect our natural resources, invest in new energy opportunities, and secure work opportunities for Virgin Islanders. A youth policy should guide the Minister of Communication and Works to make the bold moves necessary for the development of our infrastructure, to provide a higher standard of living for residents, but also to attract opportunities for new business and investments in the territory. Our youth policy should guide anyone who offers themselves to public office a fundamental understanding that they must operate outside of self and rather for the good and long-term success of the Virgin Islands, which only comes from our investment in our young people. Finally, I want to encourage the young people of the Virgin Islands and Antigua, Virgin Gorda, Just Van Dyke, and Tortola to come out and participate in the public meetings. At the end of this process, I want the plan to represent your thoughts, your ideas, and your suggestions. Though I like to think of myself as a young man, I know that the young people of the Virgin Islands might have different ideas of what we, the policymakers, need to do to improve life for the next generation of Virgin Islanders. As your territorial at-large representative and as your Minister of Education, Culture, Youth Affairs and Sports, today I offer my commitment to listen to your concerns and work to realize a youth policy to truly build that bridge for our young people between the Virgin Islands that we have today and the Virgin Islands that our young people will inherit, one that empowers Virgin Islanders in their home. I cannot leave this podium without thanking all of the young people in the Virgin Islands that keep me going in their thoughts, ambitions, and dreams. You all remind me of where I came from and the hands that helped to pull me up to where I am today. You also remind me of the honor I have as a representative. I assure all of you that I appreciate all of your support, and I avail myself to be the hand that helps to lift you up and aid you in advancing your aspirations and together build an even greater Virgin Islands. Thank you all, and may God bless you.
At this time, I'd like to call on the Assistant Director for Youth Affairs, Ms. Evelinda Freeman, to give remarks. Ms. Freeman just joined our staff in July, but ever since she has come, I know that she has been working hard and trying to get things going for the youth. So I know that with her being a part of this committee, she's going to be there making sure that whatever is supposed to happen, happens. So at this time, I would call on her so that she can give remarks and let you know exactly where she stands and where she hopes for this committee to go. Ms. Freeman.
The Department of Youth Affairs and Sports is pleased to embark on this partnership with the Youth Policy Committee in an effort to produce a youth policy for the Virgin Islands. One may ask, why a youth policy? What is a youth policy? A youth policy is government's commitment and practice towards ensuring good living conditions and opportunities for the young population. The document will be a guide on how government deals with issues that address young people. The Youth Policy Committee is comprised of 10 persons who are tasked with producing a document with which the government, through the Department of Youth Affairs, can use to conduct all youth affairs in the Virgin Islands. The committee will have public consultation throughout the Virgin Islands. They will have one general meeting on all the islands, Anegada, Jasper Lake, Virgin Gorda, and Tortola. The policy will cover areas such as juvenile justice, leisure time activities, substance abuse, employment, youth leadership, youth leadership and participation, cultural and national pride, the environment, and so on. On completion of this policy, the Virgin Islands will have a document that will chart the way forward for all young people. The department also takes this opportunity to welcome all to participate in this process by giving us your comments, whether you call, Facebook, whatever means you may, to have your contributions heard. The Youth Policy Committee also welcomes anyone who wants to assist. They meet on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. at the Youth Affairs and Department Conference Room. So we are encouraging people to take part in this process. I will now introduce the members of the committee. 2 members are missing, unfortunately, and we apologize for that. As I call your name, please stand. We have the reigning Miss BVI, Ms. Shari Di Castro. Mr. Mitchell Turnbull, sorry. Mrs. Avernia Samuel Foy. Mr. Bevan George. Mr. Theodore James. From Virgin Gorda, Miss Lauren Welch. Miss Sabrina Matthew. Absent is Miss Jessica Calwood representing Joss Van Dyke and Mr. Coy Leverns representing Anegada. Can the committee please stand? And the chairman of the committee, Miss Drusilla Foy. She's at the head table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. moving right along, I will now call on Ms. Foy to give remarks, Chairman of the Youth Policy Committee.
Acknowledging the protocol that has already been established, it gives me great pleasure to deliver brief remarks on behalf of the team tasked with developing the National Youth Policy for the Virgin Islands. Our committee, which is made up of energetic and vibrant individuals of varying backgrounds and profession, witnesses representation from all of our sister islands, thus ensuring that our final document is representative of the youth of the entire Virgin Islands collectively. As Ms. Freeman said, and we recognize, that this policy is government's commitment toward ensuring good living conditions and opportunities for the youth population of our territory. Thus, we, the committee members, have pledged our full commitment to the task at hand and are prepared to go the extra mile to fulfill our requirements. We are braced for the long hours, for the agreements and disagreements, but more importantly, we are poised and ready to take on the task at hand and produce a quality document that truly represents the young people of the Virgin Islands and our aspirations to be included in the planning and development of our country. As a young person myself, I am overjoyed that the government has seen it fit to have a national youth policy developed, and more so because it is being done by our very own Virgin Islanders. This would ensure that our document is tailored specifically to the youth needs of our territory. If we believe that popular cliche which says that the youth are the leaders of the future, then with open arms, we would welcome the development of the Virgin Islands National Youth Policy, as this document would provide a clear pathway for the youth of the Virgin Islands to inherit the leadership of our country. Our terms of reference for the policy development reminds us that the completed national policy must be able to, 1, provide a vehicle that will ensure the participation of youth in the decision-making process, policy formation, and political, social, and economical aspects of the development of the Virgin Islands. This policy must also be able to provide the youth with leadership opportunities that encourage personal growth. Bearing this in mind, this committee, as Ms. Freeman also said, will be hosting consultations and information gathering sessions with the youth population on the main island of Tortola and the sister islands as well. We'll be launching our Facebook page and visiting the various television and radio shows. As part of and this will all be done in the upcoming weeks. These sessions most definitely will be utilized to better aid us in understanding the current position of the territory's youth and how they perceive their future. The knowledge gained and the ideas discussed in these various forums would further enable us to adequately draft the national policy. I want to take this opportunity to encourage all youth of this territory, my fellow Virgin Islanders, to listen out for the dates of the various sessions and to get involved. Voice your concerns, your opinions. Your contributions would undoubtedly be extremely important in producing a quality document for both today's youth and tomorrow's youth. We foresee that areas such as employment, unemployment, education, sports and recreation, health, youth leadership and participation, culture, national pride, crime, the environment would be areas covered in any proposed policy. Currently, we are looking at the youth policies from throughout the Caribbean region, including Anguilla, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica, along with our own legislation to assist in drafting this policy. I must emphasize, however, that while we are looking at these policies, it's just as a means of guidelines, as our document will be tailored specifically to the youth needs of our territory. It is our pledge to complete and present a quality document to the Honorable Minister of Education and by extension the territory very soon for review. So we ask for the cooperation and understanding of the youth organization and stakeholders who may be approached as we gather information that are requisite to drafting the policy. We also ask for the support of the young population in sharing your views and your ideas. Finally, Mr. Minister, we know that we can ask and expect your full support and the support of your ministry and department and the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports when we call on you for guidance and any technical assistance. In closing, I just want to thank you, Minister of Education and Culture, Youth Affairs and Sports, Honorable Myron Walwin, for affording all of us the opportunity to get involved in such a project that each one of us, the committee members, hold dear to our hearts. And again, I want to reiterate our full commitment to delivering a quality youth policy for all Virgin Islands youth. Mr. Minister, your leadership so far has been a stellar example to us that together we must expeditiously work to revitalize the Virgin Islands. And I am pleased that you truly understand that this can only happen by supporting young people and our aspirations to be empowered right here at home, the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foy. And at this time, I would like to commend and congratulate all those of you on this committee who were called and who so willingly accepted to be a part of this committee to make sure that this policy is created. I know it's a big task. I know it's going to take a lot of hours. And as you say, there are things you may disagree on. You won't agree on everything at first. But I'm sure with showing or being able to prove the intent and knowing that you all are looking forward to creating a document that will take us through for many years, I'm sure you'll come to agreement and deliver the best possible document. So again, I want to say congratulations, because you didn't run from the task. You realized that if it is to go through, you would like to be a part of it, and you have a valuable contribution to make. So I know you just asked about the support of the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports and the Minister. I think I can say that you will have the Minister's support, and no doubt you will have the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports support in anything that we can do to make sure that this document moves as quickly as possible. Whatever is needed, I'm sure that you will be given. Again, thanks to the committee for accepting the responsibility, and I really look forward to good things. At this time, we're going to open the floor for question and answers.
Or the French beef I platinum. The question I have relates to the importance of this committee and ensuring that this committee is well budgeted for. Could you say how much money is budgeted for the committee, and is there a timeline by which the committee must submit a report to the Minister?
We will do whatever we can to support the committee. Most of the work really is not, it's actual consultations and so forth. We don't anticipate, even though we don't have a figure, we don't anticipate it to be a huge cost at all. In relation to your second question, we're some 16 years behind. So the quicker we can get the document, the better it is.
The question to you, Mr. Minister, is what is the time given to the committee when you expect the committee to submit a report for you? The committee said they'll be working quickly and they're ready to go. What time frame to give the committee, sir? I'm
hopeful that at least by the middle of December, they should be able to present a draft for my review.
And currently they have no funds to work with at the moment? I'm
not saying that at all. There is access to funds. It is not it's not a board, it's a committee charged by the ministry to do certain things. So whatever support they need, whether it be human resources or financial, they have access to the minister and to the ministry.
Give somebody a chance. What criteria you use, sir, to choose this committee?
That's for me?
Yes, sir.
Well, one of the things that we wanted to ensure, firstly, is that we have representation from the sister islands, and that's why we have Ms. Welch here from Virgin Gorda. The other two persons from Antigua and Just Van Dyke were unable to make it. But we wanted to ensure that we had representation from the sister islands. We also wanted to ensure that we had a good mix of male and female representation, because you know we're having particular issues with our male in the society. We wanted to look at persons from varying backgrounds and different areas of work. For instance, we wanted to make sure we have a gentleman like Mitch Turnbull, because you know Mitch is part of works along with the magistrate court in dealing with the youth court. So we want to make sure we have a good cross-section of persons. We want to make sure we have Miss BVI, because as we listen to her, She's also passionate about doing things, particularly for the youth, for the time that she's here. So we were very careful in terms of the persons that we chose to be on the committee. But that is not the point. We want to ensure as well, and you've heard it from the various persons, that we want to ensure that there's representation and the views are coming forward from everyone in the community.
When I say criteria, sir, I'm not speaking about from the various islands. I'm speaking about what these persons have within them in terms of working with the youth, in terms of what, in terms of their contribution with the youth in organizations. Have they any kind of experience that could bring to the table? That's what I mean.
I think I've answered your question. What is important to understand, and the way that this is going to work, the group is not on its own. The group is working with the support of the ministry. The group will be guided, as we have here, the Assistant Director of Sports, of Youth Affairs. We have the Director of Youth Affairs and Sports. It is not a committee that is all on its own just to produce a document. It has the full support. It has the guidelines in place. You've heard the chairman say they have policies from the different countries and so forth. So they're not on their own. I wouldn't be too concerned about them if I were you.
That's a quick follow-up question. Given the youthful composition of the committee, and I hear a lot of talk about speaking with the youth, are you totally disregarding the suggestions from older members of the community? Is that it?
Not at all. Not at all. If you've heard the previous speakers say that we'll be having public consultations. We did not say that those consultations are only with young persons. We have said that we're going to be having public meetings. We didn't say that only young persons are to come to those meetings. Whosoever will may come and give their views and suggestions to moving the policy forward.
Maliki McPherson, the Island Sun newspaper. The common consensus or views is that youths aren't usually interested in these sort of meetings and so forth. How confident are you that you'll be able to poll and get as much views from the youths at a broad section of the BVI? And are you considering that you might need to go into the high schools?
Well, we have 10 very enthusiastic young persons already. I wouldn't want to preempt what the exercise may look like. What I would want to do, though, is to congratulate the committee so far for looking at different ways of making contact with the young people who would also inform this policy. For instance, you've heard them speak about Facebook. I know that it's their plan to have Facebook town hall meetings where you can also get young persons who may not want to come out to, particularly to a public meeting to sit for a few hours. I know they're interested also in having a talk show and so on. So I wouldn't prejudge the process. And that's why I said, too, we were selective in persons that we have on the committee because I see some guys here. You have Mr. Turnbull, I see Mr. George, who are known throughout the committee at different levels and who can go up and come down and who can, meet the persons and speak to those persons who would normally come to a meeting. So, I'm confident that with the mix we have, we're going to get a good representation of the views of the youth in the community.
Mr. Minister, most of these people on this committee, are they in your committee before you were formed, committee government?
Not at all. Not at all.
What percentage of this committee comprise that?
There's actually one person here.
I'm just asking.
Yes. But I don't want you to just make it about me. We are here today about the young people. So let us see what they have to offer as well, and perhaps you can offer a few questions as well to the chairperson.
Google again from the BVI Beacon. Ms. Foy, can you tell us some of the policies in which the youths are currently misrepresented? And can you tell us some of the aspects of the community which you will tackle immediately? Because I know you've mentioned environment and employment and other aspects, but can you tell us some of the main issues you would want to tackle immediately?
Certainly immediately things like culture, national pride. We've heard so much about national pride, but do we really understand even what it is? Education, that is a very broad one, especially when we look at the new trends in education. When we look at I don't want to say special needs because I learned that we have now renamed that. When we look at the special needs in education, and even after what happens after, I should say, to persons who would have went through our education system that are considered gifted or special ed. stuff like that we look at immediately.
Ms. Boy, will the committee be meeting with organizations within the Virgin Islands? Organizations, I mean, I know that you said you encourage all Virgin Islanders to come out to the meeting. I think the minister referred to that also. Will you be holding meetings with the different organizations within the territory?
We plan to, because we need to get as much information as possible. So organizations such as Rotaract, for example, Interact.
Expatriates organizations?
If there is a need, yes, sir.
So you're not sure?
Well, we are in our initial stages.
So you will be meeting with them?
If there is a need, yes.
So at this point, you're not in a position to say if you're going to meet with them?
Immediately, no, we don't have that.
Ruben, sorry for Virgin Islands News tonight. I run the risk of asking a question.
Sorry,
I run the risk of asking a question that's probably been answered. But this is for Honorable Walwyn. During your campaign, you had put a lot of emphasis on the youth vote. Apart from what we're seeing this morning, what other initiatives might you have to benefit the youth?
This meeting is about the national youth policy, and so I would only entertain questions relating to that. We don't want to stave off to another topic, but certainly, as we said, the policy is one that we want the government to be able to reference, so that when we're making our plans, whatever it is we're doing, for instance, we have the budget process coming up now. Whenever you're looking at those sort of very important things, that you consider the needs of the young people, and that policy would guide us in everything that we do to ensure that there's inclusion for what we believe is perhaps the largest group of persons living here in the Virgin Islands.
Given the policy, you said it's about 16 years late, I think. Is that a knock on the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports? And are you satisfied that the Department of Youth Affairs and Sports is catering enough for youth?
It's not a knock on anyone at all. I think the department over the years have been working very, very hard. We just want to know, properly codify what they've been doing.
Ms. Foy, you mentioned in some of the areas that you'll be looking at juvenile justice or something like that. Does that mean that you'll be having consultation with the magistrates to kind of get an idea on what areas you should be implementing or pointing out to the legislators?
As Mr. Walwyn mentioned, we have on our committee Mr. Mitch Tombo, who is actually the youth representative at the youth court. So he is a direct functional link between the committee and the magistrate. So yes, we would, if there is a need to go, or should I say get more information, we would go through the minister and the department, but Mr. Tombo right now is our direct functional link.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Well, when the public meetings will start?
I'm sorry?
Public meetings, when are they going to start?
I would say very soon. I also want to say as soon as next week.
I would just like to say thank you to all for coming out this morning to support us in the launching of the youth policy. And as was said, the committee will be looking for assistance. They would be trying to get as much information from anyone. We're not talking about age, we're talking about information that would help to develop a policy that will deal with our youth. So again, I would like to say thanks for coming out. And if you have suggestions, I'm sure that the committee will welcome your suggestions as well. Again, thank you.